This weekend, Ryan eats some whale, Andy saw a lot of corn, and we get into starfish position with the Gameboy Advance. I'm Ryan,
I'm Andy.
and this is Weekend Rental, episode 184. Well, everyone, welcome back to another episode. A for you listeners, no difference, but for Andy and I, it's been almost a month since we've spoken in person. It's been weird. I've been missing you deeply, Andy.
Yeah.
In my travels, I was just thinking, when will I talk to Andy again about video
Well,
games?
I was very stressed
Yeah.
to thinking that you may not return. I know your kids were home,
Yes.
so I thought maybe that was my only chance that you were going to come home.
Yeah, my
That and
daughter
you
at one
wanted
point
to
when
talk
we
to
were
me again.
right. My daughter at one point when we were gone was talking about how much she missed us, and I just instructed her patiently to write up a sign on a cardboard piece of paper that said "free kids" and take her and her brother to the curb, which she didn't find as amusing as I did, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, so we both traveled. How was your cross American road trip? Did you guys have a blast?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We just hopped in the car and kind of decided to go, and we had some ideas of where to go, but
That's the best.
yeah, we thought we were just gonna like travel around Iowa and just, I don't know, see what Iowa had to offer. Turns out not much.
You
So we
don't
kept
say.
going.
Yeah, where'd you
Kept
go?
going.
Where'd you end up?
We made it all the way to Kentucky at one point. So
Did you hear banjos?
it was getting to that territory. We got to a town named Pig, Kentucky, and then that was about the time where we're like, okay, we should start heading back north.
And then you met the mayor and his cousin, brother, sister, uncle, and you're like, nah, it's time to go back. So what was in Pig? Was there a pig at least?
There was the Porky Pig Diner, and I think that was the only thing in the entire town. It was very small. But yeah, just kind of traveled around Midwest for the most part. So
how many total days were you guys on the road?
Like 9.
Damn.
We did almost 2,500 miles. So
jeez.
Yeah.
That's a good
one. A lot of driving, but
what were the highlights?
Oh boy. So went to the largest children's museum in Indianapolis.
So question, museum for children, or they had a bunch of children in the museum?
Yeah. We went there to look at the children.
Okay, that makes sense.
It was a museum for children, basically. You know, It's basically like, here's this thing that you need to learn about. Also, there's like some activity that a kid can do with it, you know. And that was pretty much the entire day. There was even a Ninja Turtles exhibit there.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool because they also had a lot of like the original comics and toys and stuff like that. It was kind of cool to see all that stuff.
Cool. Where was that at?
That was in Indianapolis.
Okay.
I think the coolest thing there, though, other than also feeling old that all that shit is in a museum, you know, they also had like Mario Brothers 3 and Pong and, you know, like all that stuff in a museum now, which makes you feel old that the shit that you had is now worthy of a museum. But they also have like an outdoor sports thing, and they had a like 4 or 5 full mini golf courses where you use a tennis ball, and like everything is like AstroTurf.
Okay.
Replicas of like real golf courses around the world.
Interesting.
So it like had a whole bunch of like, the whole thing is like terrained, and it has like fake water and stuff like that. It was crazy.
Why tennis ball versus regular ball?
I think it's because probably you could hit a tennis ball or a a golf ball rather hard
Oh,
and
okay.
it's gone,
Gotcha.
then maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Safety. But you're still using like traditional putter?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
weird.
So it's not very accurate. I would say you're not
Sure.
going. A highly skilled mini golf player is probably not going to translate his skills to this. But
Nice. Did you find any honey holes along the way with like retro game stores or anything like that?
no, no, we looked at a few different places, but nothing really. You know, it was more like, oh, I was here, like pop in and see what they have about thrift stuff or whatever. But they
Sure.
don't really have anything like that. Didn't even make it to really any arcades. Kind of wanted to find some sort of arcade, but I guess the one thing that I kind of realized on a family trip like this is once you have a family up to 6, there starts to become things that are like unreasonably priced for like
Sure.
what value you get out of it.
Like
Because everything's times
McDonald's.
6. Right.
Yeah.
Even McDonald's is crazy, But
Yeah.
yeah.
Outside of the soup kitchen, you're out of luck. It's expensive.
Yeah. We did try pretty much every chicken place you could find down south, so that was
Nice.
worth it.
I tried to go to Dave's Hot Chicken, which just opened in Fargo recently while I was gone, and I drove by and the line was already out the door, so I decided
Jeez.
not to do that.
Yeah, when you go to Cane's down south, there's not lines because there's so many of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No.
I've still never tried Cane's, and for anyone listening who doesn't know, Cane's is like a fast food chain that just makes chicken strips, and everyone's like, it's the best goddamn chicken strip on the. And it's like, well, fine, that's like great. You've perfected the cheapest 10-year-old fast food ever. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I don't know. It's fine.
But there's a whole bunch of them. There's like 3 different places that are like that. There's one called Zaxby's, which is down south. I don't think there's any up here.
Sure.
All chicken fingers. And a place called Bojangles, which is also chicken fingers. And they give you like a gallon of iced tea. It's weird.
Interesting. Isn't there also supposedly like I can't remember the name of it, but like a White Castle knockoff down south that has like I forget, it's like the most pharmacy sounding name, but they like just lifted the White Castle menu. I can't remember what it's called anymore.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So how were the not Cane's restaurants down there? Good? Chickeny? Fingery?
Pretty good. I would say Zaxby's is definitely the best.
Okay.
I think my favorite part of that is like their kids meal at that moment was a Mr. Beast box.
Why?
I don't know. So it's just basically chicken fingers, and you get a Mr. Beast chocolate bar for
I
dessert,
thought it was.
I
I
think.
figured it was like a child grooming thing where they like gave you the email address to his associates to send nudes.
My favorite part was like this probably 70-some-year-old lady cashiering, basically trying to, she was trained to push the Mr. Beast box.
Sure.
Would your children like to try the Mr. Beast box today? And the lady, she got trained on it, but I'm sure she has no idea what's going on.
Why would you? Yeah.
Yeah. Who is this man?
I like how the prize is just candy. It's like we're already not feeding you shitty enough food. Have more sugar, please.
Yeah. Probably like one of them probably has like 10 grand in it or something. Who knows?
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys had a fun trip. You made it there and back safe and sound. No like weird vehicle surprises or child abduction anywhere along the way.
It all well, not us. There was
that's good.
Yeah. We'll save that for a different time.
But I'm curious now. You have to elaborate slightly.
No, it was we were at a city park in Indianapolis, and somebody lost their child, and
God.
We were there about an hour and a half, and they were still yelling, could not find the child. So don't know.
Did you come back with good. 4 kids or 5?
I think 4.
And they're all the names
I'm still
that you
waiting
gave
on the
to your
test
children.
on the 5th
one.
one.
Okay, all right. Okay. That checks out. That's terrifying and sad and awful. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
Yep.
yeah.
How was you went quite a bit farther. You want to
Yeah, I drove a
explain
little
where
bit.
you went and kind of I
I
want to hear
drove
like
I drove across the world to Norway in my 2003 Trailblazer with 150,000 miles. It's got a lot of miles on it now. Yeah, we flew to Norway. Did 2 weeks. My wife and my parents and I. It was kind of like it was kind of a big trip because it was like it kind of spawned out of like me watching my grandparents kind of go, and my grandpa always regretting never getting to see like Germany and the homeland, and like I'll always do it one day, and then one day came, and so it was cool like that. We've been throwing money in a pot for many years to make that happen, and um, you know, Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, screw it. We'll just save up for this vacation. And like it finally came, which is a weird feeling, like when you've been like saving and planning for this theoretical trip. But yeah, it was awesome. I think I mentioned it, but like I studied abroad and like went to school there for 4 months when I was in college. And we went to Oslo, which is the area that I went to school in, for a week. And then the second half of our 2 week trip, we went to Bergen, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. The weather in Oslo was great. It was like 73 degrees. A lot had changed in the 20 years since I'd lived over there, and still a lot had not. Oslo was a much bigger city. It's a much more modern city. English, especially in Oslo, was always easy, but it's everywhere now. It's on the signs, it's on the public transportation. So as a foreigner, it's super convenient. Drug deals in public every day. Big city, not surprising. Still felt infinitely safer than like an American city or whatever. But yeah, it was great. I got to run into a couple old friends the first couple days. We toured around with an old buddy of mine. He showed us around. It was a lot of fun. I went back to my hometown, got to show my parents where I went to school, my wife, which was a lot of fun. That town had drastically changed. We did like the 2 mile straight up a fucking hill hike to where my dorms were from the college at the time. And it was like super sad, like this ultra like nostalgic trip, like, homecoming sort of feeling. And like, for whatever reason, there were 3 buildings at the time that were part of our campus for the dormitories. The main one was the old insane asylum building, which was the largest building. And then the 2 residence buildings where the nurses and stuff had stayed was one of the buildings I was in. But for whatever reason, like one residence building and the insane asylum were still standing and mine was gone. Like they bulldozed it and like put something new there, which was like super sad because I was like, what? I wanted a picture with my building. But for whatever reason, we had like this weird picture. We had this weird like bronze statue of a deer that was like out the window and like down a little bit on the property in front of my building. That was still there. So like I got a picture of the deer. So that was cool. Yeah, again, hung out with friends and then did the train ride. We got a private car in the train from Oslo to Bergen, and that is just like, oh, man, like you got to do it. Like if you go over there, like it's so fucking amazing because like, you're starting out at sea level, going from like east to west in the country, and like you get up to the highlands, you get above the tree level, you see glaciers. It was like a 6 something hour train ride. And the best part is like once we got to like elevation, it really started to look like Lord of the Rings, or like, I guess it jogged my memory to think like Jurassic Park, because one, because I was thinking Jurassic Park, and two, because I'm an annoying prick. Every time we would enter a tunnel, I just started doing da 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 da, like the Jurassic Park theme, and I would do it like horribly out of key, like just to piss people off. And I did this the entire trip, and then about 4 hours into this trip, 2 kids from a neighboring cab were outside of our train car, and I just hear la 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 la. and they just start laughing hysterically. So not only had I pissed off and annoyed my family, I had done it to the people next to us clearly too. So that was great. It was so much fun. It was beautiful. And then Bergen, I'd traveled to a lot of Norway. Like I'd gone through the mountains. I'd gone kind of middle country up to Trondheim and stuff, but I'd never actually gone to Bergen. And Bergen, after a week of Oslo, which I love Oslo. There's so much to see, a lot of history, biggest city. Bergen was like a fraction, like 300,000 versus a million, right? So it was just this like super chill way. It's like kind of like Seattle. So it's like always raining, a lot cooler temps, everything's close together. It was like this amazing change of pace. Like I loved it. My parents appreciated it too because like I think they'd kind of be getting worn out. And we had a blast. And as great as Oslo is, like you get to Bergen and it's like all the shit you think of Norway, like steep cliffs, like trees, fjords, boats. I mean, all those things exist in Oslo also, but it was it was pretty incredible. I love Bergen. Like I genuinely had a fantastic time there. And again, still very like touristy, English friendly. It still amazes me too, like how 30 years ago America, Scandinavia is in terms of like it's people first, right? Like breakfast places open at 10 a.m. Shit closes at like 6. You know what I mean? Like uh, quality of life versus convenience always gets to me. They still don't have fucking public bathrooms. Like we ran that trip for 2 weeks. Like you have to get used to running on the verge of dehydration because there's just no public bathrooms. Like you're either going into a restaurant or a bar and buying a drink or a meal, or you're paying to get into one of the few bathrooms you can find that are public, which I will say way better in the age of like debit cards. Cause like when I was there before, like if you didn't have exact change, you were fucked. Like now at least you can go pay like 50 cents at like anything with your debit card, which is great. But yeah, I had a really great time. I got to see some friends that theoretically I'd never see again in my lifetime. Share it with my family. My parents had a great time. Yeah, I'm still kind of like unpacking and unprocessing it all because like we delayed recording even a day this week because like I've just been so jet lagged and out of it. Um,
How many hours difference is it?
7. Yeah, so
Okay.
so I got back. We got back into the U.S. around 6 on Saturday our time. By the time we got done with baggage and customs, it was 7:30. Left, got to my parents' house in Park Rapids at about 11. So basically 6 a.m. Norway time, which we had gotten up that day at 7 a.m. So basically 23 hours straight.
Wow.
And then I just like crashed for 4 hours. We got up and like drove home Sunday morning. So I've been kind of like, I don't know what it is. Like the next day is never as bad. And then the following 2 days are always like really weird. Like even when we're
Hmm.
in Norway, like that Tuesday, because we left Saturday, got there on that time Sunday. Yeah, whatever, like 2 days out is always like really weird. But yeah, great. It was a fantastic trip. My wife did the Fitbit stuff after we got back. We walked like 280 some thousand steps, just like basically 124.5 miles, and we climbed 457 floors in elevation.
Oh,
Because in
wow.
Norway, everything is up fucking hill for some reason, no matter what you do. But yeah, it was awesome. It was great. I really loved it. And I loved being away from here and just getting like to unplug and yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Um, yeah, I mean that area is some of the most beautiful in the world, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
the
And like
the the topography, especially, is just like there's not much like that there.
yeah. I mean it's such a wild trip to think back on because it's like, being in Oslo and like watching like going to museums and like seeing the Scream in person and then like transitioning to the later half where we're like brushing up against waterfalls in the fjord, or like on top of a mountain, like above the tree line. And like the fact that we did all of that in one trip is wild. And yeah, and it was, I mean, I think some of the fun part too is like seeing old friends that I hadn't seen in person in like 18 years, and like just immediately falling back into that. We hadn't missed a day. Like that was pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. Huh.
And yeah, yeah, and you know, people talk about how expensive it is, and it is, but Norway and Scandinavia in general, it's like the shit that's bad for you is the stuff that costs, right? Like alcohol, you're gonna pay $10 to $15 a beer out in the bars, right? Like if you buy it off sale, you're paying $3 to $5 a beer. Like if you're gonna eat shitty sweets and stuff, it's expensive. But really, it's not any worse when you think about like how much we pay for McDonald's and stuff here.
Is that tax? Are they putting
It's
extra tax on that
Yeah, it's
stuff?
tax. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Fuel for sure was nuts. Like I saw, the weird thing is like it's when you're in those cities, like you don't see gas stations. But I did see on our way out, like I think it was like 350 a liter. So you're like just under
Oof.
4 liters per gallon. So very expensive. I think it's hilarious that our current governor, who's shilling to be an underling for a man I hope doesn't take office, has poo-pooed electric infrastructure because our climate's so terrible and cold weather and electric vehicles don't work. But I shit you not, like my buddy pointed out to me, like every license plate that starts with an E in Norway is an electric vehicle. In Oslo, counting cars, looking at parking lots, I I am not joking. It is literally 50-50. Like in a
Wow.
city of 1 million people, 50% of those people are driving electric vehicles. All their in-town public buses, public infrastructure, it's all electric. Even Bergen, which is more remote and would probably require, more gas cars to really get around, I'd say it was still like 40-60. Like it was nuts. Like to the point where like it kind of sucked because you're walking around these big cities and stuff, and then like electric cars are like creeping up on you. Like you don't even realize you're in somebody's way because it just like rolls up on you all like slow. So that kind of sucked, but yeah, it was great. I failed 100% of my mission to find retro video games. It was just as barren and desolate to find games in Europe, or at least in Scandinavia as I remembered it. Like
Huh.
I saw one N64 game, and that was like in a display window of a Pokemon store because they were running like Pokemon Stadium for whatever reason on a CRT. I found a couple stores that were selling very limited quantities of like physical current gen games. Almost bought a booster pack because I don't know why, but like in Europe they sell a physical booster pack for Mario Kart 8 on the Switch, which is a download code card, 4 pins, some stickers, and some cards.
Ooh,
But
that's cool.
it was cool, but it's $40 and it comes with DLC that I'll never be able to use. So I didn't do it. Um, the one retro store I found that I could have gone to in Bergen was only open on Saturdays from 10 to 3. I flew out on,
Jeez.
I flew out on a Saturday and I didn't get in there until after 3 on a Saturday, so that was not going to happen. But yeah, and then my other mission was to find some black metal vinyl, and I did find at one thrift store, antique store, I found some Dark Throne vinyl, but the guy wanted $60 a piece, and I was just like, that's
Ooh.
not that cool for something that I probably can't get home without breaking
Mm-hmm,
and I'm
mm-hmm.
never going to listen to, because who's going to want to listen to that with me in my house, yeah, very cool. I did manage to in Bergen. I looked up and like somebody had mentioned on like some Reddit thread that there was my kids upstairs playing around. I have no idea what's happening. They had mentioned there was like this pinball club in Bergen, so I got curious and was looking into that private club, members only. But then if like you message the guy, like apparently he sets up like appointments. So I messaged the Facebook group. Facebook group told me to email an email address. Emailed the email address. That guy told me to text him at a number. I was like, this is like, at that point, I was like, this is too much work. Like, this doesn't make sense. But I did all of that, and it was like conveniently like 3 blocks away from where I was staying in an Airbnb. And
Jeez.
I ended up getting an appointment and got to go check out this pinball club. It was like Bergen, I don't know, Bergen Pinball Club. There's like a Scandinavian name for it, but absolutely insane. I can say without question, like in terms of pinball, I've never been to a better showcase of pinball. Like it was everything from the golden era up to the most recent Stern stuff. The guy was super knowledgeable, as you'd imagine is the case with our hobby, super eclectic. There's nobody that's that into that stuff that isn't at least a little quirky, but he was nice about it. Showed us around, and yeah, he had here's the thing that like blew me away. It was like you go to these places like, let's say like Galloping Ghost or Midwest Gaming Classic, and it's always like the showcase of like everything's amazing, right? And like depending on the place, like 10 to 15 to 20% doesn't work, or there's something wrong with some of it, right? Like that wasn't the case. These were like top notch, flawless everything. And he had some incredible stuff. He had that Primus table, which is like one of allegedly 100. Like apparently there was 100 total planned, 8 of them special editions for members or the band members. He had one. Terrible table.
Wow.
It was based on a like, I forget what it's called, Whoa Nelly. It was like an older table, which has to do with like watermelons and like a giant tit innuendo is like the basis. But anyway, terrible, but like really cool game to play. He had, I don't know. He had like some weird, rare, like in Spain only release tables, and then he had like everything in between that you would want, right? Like if there was a game that you remember playing from a kid, it was there and it was working perfectly. He had this amazing, like the one I loved and played a lot was like this Capcom game, which I didn't know Capcom ever made a pinball table, but it was basically a soccer game. So it's like you're the goal at one end, and then there's a goalie at the other end, and there's like you have to hit it up there, like knock the goalie blocks out, and then get the shot in before they close back up. Super cool.
Huh.
And just yeah, it was just awesome. I got my family to go, and I had my parents, and he was super like cool about just like, hey, I just want people to get out and enjoy this shit. Would sell you a beer too, but he was like marking it up like 70 cents, like from retail, which is like, he's not even trying to make a profit. He's just trying to do it. And like, I could tell when talking to him, he's like a little frustrated. He's like, I spend thousands of hours here, like working on this thing, and like nobody shows up, and it's like people don't appreciate it. I'm like, well, I get your frustration. Right. It's private. I get your frustration. Like I think every collector feels like that. But like I tried to tell him, I was like, I've been to a lot of these things. Like this is the best version of that. Like whether or not you have people coming out is like you are doing something historically important for a genre of gaming that isn't relevant. And like I was trying to tell him, like, well, I collect this, like any Nintendo and NES, and then he's like giving me a tour of the place. He's like, yeah, pinball and blah blah blah. And he's like, it all died because of your fucking video games. And I'm like, hey, like, can't we all like him? Can't we like them all? Like, well, hey, it's not my fault. Like, I like them both. He was a good guy though. He was, he's what you'd expect. I can't. He was very welcoming, and it was awesome. And yeah, it felt like a really unique experience. And like, honestly, my parents crapped out after like an hour and a half. I'd have been there like. You'd have to pull me out of there. If it was just me or me and my son, maybe like, we'd have never left. Some amazing tables, absolutely amazing tables.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the logistics already of having pinball tables in Europe anyway, even Northern Europe, especially considering, most of them were made here, I would imagine. Yep. So I don't think they were manufactured over there. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, you're right.
It's got to be much more rare because of that fact, Yep.
Yeah, and he was telling me he had like another 130 tables that he didn't have there. He's like, well, they're
Wow.
projects. I'm like, even so, like that's nuts,
Wow.
So yeah, that was cool. I mean, I could go on and on for hours and hours about the things I did and the things I saw and the things it was, but Norway's beautiful. Go visit it. It's it's an
Oh,
experience.
I was curious about one thing.
Yeah.
What is the general vibe and consensus of Norway during the Summer Olympics? Do they give a shit? Or
It's tough to say because I was basically lined up perfectly. I was there over the whole Summer Olympics and I was constantly out of Airbnb and like moving around. It was definitely on. It was on a lot on the local networks, but I can't say how much fanfare there was when I can't, translate the Norwegian
yeah,
coverage. From the couple of friends I had met up with, like it came up casually in conversation. It didn't seem like it was, shut the streets down and hoorah.
right.
I yeah, probably about like what it is in the US these days, right? Like where people get pretty patriotic for the 2 weeks that it's happening and then after that you forget about it.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like it's like the US throwing their own party half the time because, we usually dominate in everything because mostly women's sports because they can afford to spend their lives doing it where
Yes.
a lot of countries can't do that. So, yeah. I mean, Norway, obviously, winter sports are a much bigger thing.
Yes.
So,
Well, as I was reminded, I won't even. No, never mind. I'm not going to say it. It's fine. But yeah, it didn't come up as much as I thought it would. I figured there'd be more fanfare, but yeah, I feel like I went through a time warp and like completely missed the existence of the Olympics. So I
yeah.
am
Yeah.
slightly pumped that for the second time in a row, Nyjah Houston did not win men's street skateboarding. Because
Yeah. Do you see Andy McDonald was still doing it?
I mean,
That's
if
crazy.
you consider doing it being he rolled around some transition and did like a McTwist, then yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to take away a man who's 51 and is still performing at that level. Like he
Yeah.
knew he wasn't getting on the podium, right? Like he wanted to end
Oh,
his
yeah.
professional skateboarding career as an Olympic athlete. So
Yeah.
I loved the amount of like just arbitrary Tony Hawk with his fists in the air shots that had to be in all these runs for some reason. I guess he's
Uh,
been lobbying for Vert to make it. And I was like, I guess, like, if we're putting braking in, then Vert should definitely make it. So,
right. I feel like pool hasn't been either. Wasn't it mostly street before this, I think? So they already
right.
have started to get into that. But yeah.
Yeah. Which is weird when you think about like they had that in there, but like baseball and softball had been like cut from the list.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing? I mean, I love skateboarding. I will forever love skateboarding and what it did for me, but like to look at that as an Olympic judgeable sport is defeating the purpose. But
Yeah.
still cool. If it gets kids skating, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just 14-year-olds getting gold medals. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. And sadly, breaking isn't going to make it back. It doesn't sound
No.
like. Poor Ray Gun.
She's set up for life. She's writing this for forever now.
Maybe, or we're going to get the headline like Breaker Ray Gun hucks self into short confessed waters off of New Zealand, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
That would be a better dance than what she did.
Yeah, that was something.
Yeah.
That felt like if a white, never breakdancing kid ever before performed like a breakdancing skit in their private home. But
All while trying to maybe con their country into sending them on a free trip to Paris.
I mean, that's the thing is like there was a qualification process. Like, how did she end
Yeah.
up there? Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
I also don't understand how you judge that sport, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing with all that stuff is like culturally, even like what is artistic has to be different. So
Yes. Artistic or autistic, who can say? Fortnite. Why?
that's a great question. It's summer and the kids are here, so they've been playing a lot of Fortnite.
Mm,
And I think we've come full circle now because we got Rocket League in there now, right? Which is a
sure.
free to play game.
Yep.
And now there's Fall Guys.
Yep. My son's been doing that.
Yeah, which is it's take a break, play Fall Guys. You're back into Fortnite. Go race some cars with Rocket League. It's really weird. Everything that they're doing over there, it just like I don't understand what the curation process is. It's just like we can get more and more and just
Right.
put it in there, more.
Well, I will tell you from experience that Fortnite is now so good and such a draw that if your parents leave the country for 2 weeks and they pick you up and bring you home, that you immediately run to your PS5, shut your door, and don't talk to them for the rest of
Oh,
the day.
jeez.
So one of my kids missed us and hung out with us. One might
Fortnite
have
might be
ran to his
banned from my
PlayStation
house.
5. So apparently PlayStation over parents is what we're learning here.
Jeez.
But yeah, the Fall Guys thing, like, did they just fully roll that in? Like, it's every epic online multiplayer game is in one house now, or what's the deal?
I'm not sure if the whole game's in there, but even like during a regular game of Fortnite, you can just go up to a statue
Yeah,
and all of a sudden you're playing that up in the sky or whatever. It
so
it's weird.
Yeah, my son was pissed because he missed the Tesla thing. So he's like, "Can you buy me a V-Bucks card?" I was like, "Why?" He's like, "I need 2,800 V-Bucks to get the Cybertruck." I'm like, "No, you don't."
Oh my gosh.
Um, which a side tangent. On the way out of Minneapolis, I saw a Cybertruck wrapped in camo, like traditional camo. Still a piece of shit, ugly vehicle, and I could see it, so that camo failed. But yeah, I don't know. Like, he was showing me the Fall Guys thing, and like, I know he's been playing Rocket League, but Fortnite has evolved in this like crack playground for like kids playing video games between the ages of like 8 and 15. I just like it's almost like Fortnite and that ecosystem is the console, right? Like, we got excited about like Nintendo, but they're like, it doesn't matter how they hook into it. It's like Epic. Epic is the platform, right?
Yep. I catch myself a little bit, like right now there's Magneto, right? Oh, I want to play as Magneto, but at the end of the day, it's just a skin. It's always just a skin.
Right.
So you're doing all this shit, and you get the skin, and then next month you don't care about it anymore. Anyway, it's I saw something about how there was a study say basically asking all these kids, and the majority of people cared more about how their avatar, or basically Fortnite player, was dressed instead of like buying brand name clothes to wear to school.
Okay, I can see that.
And yeah, it's such a weird thing to think about, to care that much about how your avatar looks. I don't know.
I have a feeling that those same people would choose to go to school in Fortnite rather than go there in person. So
Yeah, that's true.
we're almost at the level of like World of Warcraftness, where people are just gonna like lose contact with the real world and start marrying people on the platform. And
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
it's wild. It
Cannot be stopped.
just
That's for
seems like
sure.
every time you think Fortnite is like gonna wane, and like it ebbs and flows, like it just comes back in like such a weird way. Like, I
Hmm.
had a kid who didn't give a shit about it for like 6 months, and now he's just all back into it. It's wild.
Yeah. We didn't play it for, I mean, really, last summer was the last time we were really into it. And yeah, same thing.
Well, there was some sad news in the real world. I don't know if you read that news, but like GameStop felt it necessary to just like shit can everyone over at Game Informer. Yesterday, it sounds like, to no one's surprise, Game Informer was the last print publication, like traditional. Obviously, there's other like you know Patreon funded magazines, but Game Informer was literally the last in print North American video game magazine. For anyone who's in the know, and pretty much everyone who listens to this would know that they were sold and the subscriptions were pushed like largely and exclusively for the most part through GameStop. GameStop has survived by being a meme stock, and for some reason they still have brick and mortar. But it sounds like there was no warning for the happy few that were left at Game Informer, and some of them didn't even realize they'd been fired until they said on social media. So it sucks, and it's kind of tough for you know people in our neck of the woods like Andy and I. Like it's a Minneapolis based magazine. It always has been, so like kind of close to home. Kind of sad, like right? Like we had a little bit of bragging
Right.
rights. Like Game Informer, it's our magazine, you know.
Yep. And there was so many people that were there forever,
Yes.
writing for it. And obviously, way back in the day, they were not the go-tos,
No.
I mean, you got your EGMs and Nintendo Powers and all that stuff, but slowly but surely, even in the early 2000s, when GameStop became a powerhouse like it did, that really kind of pushed that into the mainstream as they bundled it with everything, and it became what it was. Yeah, it's sad to see it go like that. I think the writing's been on the wall. Like you said, there was no warning, but I feel like the warning's been there for
Right.
5 years. I'm actually surprised it took this long.
Yeah.
For them kind of to shut that down, because I don't know how much it's adding to their program. I don't even know what GameStop's doing anymore anyway. Like I don't know what their model is.
Correct.
So
yes, it's a fair assessment.
So yeah, in the season of layoffs and stuff and cuts, I definitely could see this coming, but it really sucks that they couldn't, try and sell it to something else, but have them become independent if they wanted to again, or something along those
Yes.
lines. Yeah, they basically cut them off, like put a muffle on them so they couldn't say anything about it, damn near, and no send off or anything. It's shitty.
Yeah, it really does suck. It was like a little surprising, like when I heard that, because I was like, I didn't even realize it was still in print, right?
Yeah.
But who could blame a person for thinking that, given everything else that's happened in the last 5 years in the gaming industry? Like, there really are, like, we're at a point where, like, there are so few journalists who can truly make a living, like, saying they write in games media. Because, like, the whole landscape, I mean, the industry's changed, but, like, the ability to, like, do the thing on your own through Patreon or YouTube and,
And the companies wanted to, control the message themselves, that's
right. Right. Yeah.
how do you
And
get previews and reviews when they're just putting on Nintendo Direct? So
and I think that was always the thing that, like, not that Game Informer didn't have value and not that there weren't some talented writers and staff, because there were, but I think that was always like my thing with that magazine was like, all right, like how biased is this? Like, this is a thing that's pushed through a subscription from a retailer that's exclusively selling games. So like, yeah, maybe you're getting the inside scoop, or but you're not truly giving an accurate review, right? Because you got to push games. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I, like everyone, had a subscription for a while because we're all paying for like that GameStop membership thing, and like
Yeah.
it was a nice perk, but
I can't remember the last time I actually sat down and read one,
no.
I even when I was been getting them. So Yeah, it's sad. It's sad that even I think even websites that are doing the same thing like are kind of in trouble for that. Like I don't even see too many of them, that do news and reviews and shit like that to a really big extent.
Yeah, it's almost like you find your YouTube channel or two that you like watching on occasion, but other than that, you're kind of over it. It's very
Yep.
weird. Sorry, I'm still yawning. Jet lag, everybody. I'm still adjusting. So
Plus, there's only one game to cover Fortnite, so
that's true. It is the game. I see a game on here that I'm excited about. Did you find Zillionaires on Mars?
yeah. So
You went to a Five Below.
obviously, on our trip, that's if you're on a road trip, Five Below is probably the best place you could stop.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Especially with
for snacks
4
and shit like that.
kids. Yeah,
Yeah, it was. I think we went 2 times and it was $100 both times. So like,
that
it's pretty
tracks. I
easy to
spent
do when
like
you're just
60 to
like,
70. So
yeah. We did find it finally,
yep.
and then came home. Did not have time to play it. And another night we were out, got to a Target, and on clearance there was Zillionaires
Across
USA
the
road trip.
USA. Yeah.
Yes. So I was like, oh, we just went on a road trip. Saw. I wonder if any of the things that we saw were in this type thing.
Sure.
So we bought that, played that, and yeah, that game is amazing.
Yeah.
It
It's the
really
same
is.
game from what I understand, just different like quirky puns. So
Yep. Yeah. The only thing that was like when I really compared them now, there's nothing different. The cards are different. That's
yeah,
the only thing different.
exactly.
So one of them was $5. The other one was $17 on clearance. So it was a little bit like what?
Yeah.
Same components pretty much, but
Yeah. You
but
like it
yeah,
though.
that game. Yeah, they especially with kids, it's a good interaction to um kind of bait them into spending more money than they should.
Yes.
And then it'd be like, ha, money lesson. You learned it tonight.
Exactly. We got in like a huge debate when we first started playing it about like leaving your money on the table versus not. And I was like, no, you have to leave your money on the table. They're like, finally, like it broke into like this huge arguing match. We went back to the instructions and it's like, oh no, like be secretive about your money. It was like,
Yep.
fine, I guess. But yeah, it's such a brutal game because it's just like it always kind of comes down to like dicking the other person enough to make sure that you have the cash to prevent a loss at the end. And like it's so crushing when you realize like you're $5,000 short or whatever, or 5 zillion
Right.
short. Yeah.
But it also really sucks when you're like the one who's like, oh, I'm at a good cash position or something. And then all of a sudden one comes up where a guy could win on it,
Yeah.
get the fourth one in a row. And it's like, well, I have to blow all my money on this.
Yep.
I'm the only one that can save us.
Yeah. And then like it's brutal too when you get to the point where like everyone's played enough to realize that like every property is worth at least 7 zillion. So you're just like always fighting to 7 zillion. You're like, okay, fine, take it. Like I'll get the next one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or just bid up to 7 right away. Be like,
Yep.
if you go 8, you can have it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that it
That game
doesn't
is
waste
fun.
people's time. So
Yep.
nice. I had something I was going to say along with that. I forget. Something jogged my memory and I completely forgot it. I feel like an idiot now. Well, I'll just go on to my next topic. Hit my feed. I had no awareness of this, but like, I think it's a way forward published thing, but they're not developing it. But apparently, there's this 16-bit retro hack and slash pair of games coming out. It's a Halloween themed game, and then they're also doing a Ash versus Evil Dead themed game. And I think they run off the same engine, so they're both being sold digitally. But then if you buy both games, you get like crossover gameplay between the two. And if you pre-order, you get an exclusive set of characters for each two. So I went immediately knowing that it was an Evil Dead related thing and pre-ordered it on Amazon. I think it's coming out on all current consoles. I got the Switch version, but it's like $50 and like it's cool. Like it's billed as like a double feature, like old retro, horror like drive-in thing. So $50, I'm getting both of these games when they come out in October on a physical cart. It doesn't look like anything revolutionary, but it looks like a solid hack and slash sort of side-scrolling game. The only thing that bummed me out a little bit was they have a $99 exclusive like collector's edition, but for whatever reason, like they're really leading with, and I guess I kind of get it. They're really leading with the Halloween style stuff on that. So it's all like Michael Myers plushie and like Halloween extras, but no
Oh,
Evil
sure.
Dead extras, which kind of pisses me off. It's like they
Yeah.
could have at
Huh.
least done like 2 special versions because I don't know. I'm more of an Evil Dead guy. It's cool to see like an Ash versus Evil Dead tie-in. I think the one bonus character from the pre-order will be I forget the character's name. She was the female like counterpart.
Oh, from the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the show. And also, I guess they're doing um, a pickup of that and like or a reboot of sorts, and like doing an animated Ash versus Evil Dead like continuation. So
Huh.
could be cool.
With Bruce Campbell, I would imagine.
I'd imagine he's voicing it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it was like a little Christmas present to me because anything Evil Dead I'll take, and the games look neat, and with Way Forward kind of like being behind it, like pushing it, it's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know if Halloween has ever had a video game. Has it?
Atari
Maybe an old
2600.
Atari one, maybe?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Or well, yeah, there's at least Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think there was a Halloween game also. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this one, are you playing as Michael or
Yes.
you're
Yep.
Lori or what? Okay.
Yeah, playing as Michael. So yeah, the screenshots. You can watch the gameplay trailers on YouTube. They look pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't look like, again, nothing amazing, but if you're into those properties and you like retro style platforming slashers, it's gonna be good. So
Yeah, that sounds cool.
yeah. Yes.
Huh.
I still am like trying to figure out what I was gonna say and like forgot something. I swear it was something interesting. I'm gonna chalk it up as a loss, the jet lag, but it's
Yeah, next time.
maybe. Should we get into the staff picks?
Yep, let's go for it. I can go first. Mine's
Maybe
gonna
we should
be
go
rather
second
quick.
because you're probably gonna have more
okay.
to say than I will. I was just gonna. Mine will be in addition to my trip, and so in Norway they're very into coffee, and they really love coffee, and I love Norway, but I hate to inform them that they drink terrible shit coffee. It is the cheapest, lamest coffee. It's always served black. You will not find creamer anywhere, which is fine. I get it. But if you're going to drink black coffee, it should not be generic dumpster fire Folgers style coffee. That said, they had a chain over there that is the antithesis of what Starbucks and Caribou is in the US. And it's called Backstube, which I guess just translates to bakery. So basically, it's this amazing store that just like has fuck tons of pastries and stuff, right? Like they open pretty early over there. It's just like pastries, donuts, breads, like pretzels, and it's all delicious. And their coffee is generic, like church urn black bullshit coffee, but it's great because that's the opposite of what we have, right? Like we have really sugary, sweet, delicious coffee and like terrible food. And it was so fucking good. And like I fell in love with this thing in Oslo, and they had them in Bergen too. Apparently there's only like 30 locations. It's a Norway-based company. But I would go there like pretty much every day and like stuff my face with like chocolate baguettes and like chocolate croissants and like lingonberry pastries. And it's fucking awesome. And I really need it to come to the US. And if I was wealthier and had the time to do a startup, I would work on that. But someone who is wealthier and has the time to do that should really reach out to backstube.no and please bring it here. I'm begging you. I need my lingonberry pastries and my chocolate croissants. Help me out.
And translate it. Just call it bakery.
Yeah, just call it bakery. That won't get. I'm sure that's copyrightable in the US. 100%. So if you're in Norway, go to that fucking thing. It's delicious. But yeah,
That sounds pretty good.
let's get on to your topic or staff pick.
Well, I don't know yeah. So I went to Deadpool versus Wolverine twice.
I've heard amazing things. Why twice?
It was just that good.
Hmm.
There's a couple specific jokes. I didn't go with Amanda the first time,
Okay.
and there was a couple specific jokes that needed to be seen on the big screen with her in attendance.
Okay.
One of them, the Honda Odyssey plays a pretty big role in this movie, and that is the vehicle that we drive. So it was pretty funny to see that play such a big role in this movie. And yeah, I don't want to get into too much spoilers. I'm guessing most people have seen it that want to see it at this point. I don't know, but it is exactly the perfect crossover style movie. It's got all the great Deadpool in jokes. I mean, if you do not watch any Marvel movies, like if you've never seen a comic book movie and walked into this, I can't imagine even understanding anything that's happening. But yeah, there's so much, Hugh Jackman's played Wolverine for what, freaking 20 years? I don't even know, but
I was in
there's
college,
so much yeah, there's so much built into that it's just funny to be able to make jokes on all of that legacy,
I've heard Channing Tatum plays Gambit too.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, there's a few good cameos in there for sure. Yeah, I think it's a step up from even the first two Deadpools. The first one I like quite a bit. It's obviously pretty low budget and pretty low.
Yeah. First one's pretty dark too, and like less humor. Like the second one was more like the ridiculousness.
Yep. Yeah. The plot goes less and less by the wayside, I think, as these Deadpool movies go on.
Sure.
It's more, ridiculous jokes, violence, all that stuff. So
I forget, did his girlfriend die in the second one?
she gets shot, but then they go back in time with his thing, with Cable's thing to get her back, if I remember right.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, there's just so many good jokes in this movie that I think I'm surprised that Disney actually went ahead and did it. It's not as risque as like the old ones, I guess, but they're still pretty hard rated R, I would say.
Sure. Which I guess it is.
Just surprised. Yeah. He's supposedly, part of the whole, cinematic universe now. So I don't know what that means. I'm guessing
retiring though. Like, didn't Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman say this is like it?
Yeah, pretty much. But money talks. Robert Downey Jr. is coming back.
For what?
He's gonna be Dr. Doom now.
But he was already Iron Man.
Yeah, but money. So
interesting.
I think the best part about this is they let him basically shit on how bad Marvel movies have been lately. So at least they let him do that,
Well, it sounds like at least this lived up to the hype where Guardians 3 was an abysmal abomination of a film.
Yeah.
That completely missed the point of everything 2 had set up.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to watch it. I didn't mind the Deadpool movies, but like I'm not, as deep into the comic stuff. Like, so even MCU largely I give zero shits about.
Right. Yeah.
But those Deadpool and Guardians were always like the more approachable ones, right? Like if you're not gonna like give a crap about the comic stuff. So
At least they're entertaining. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's doing well, which is good because
Yeah.
movies generally don't.
Um, Borderlands.
Borderlands is doing good, I heard. Just killing it. Crushing it.
Oof, that one's.
I mean, the casting just indicated that it was going to be top notch. So,
Yeah. I. It's amazing that that movie even exists in the first place to me. But
especially in a theater, like if someone had said like this is coming exclusively to Hulu, I'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and not 8 years ago
Right.
when Borderlands was popular.
With Kevin Hart for whatever reason.
Yeah. Bunch of old ladies.
Mm-hmm. It's too bad. I do want to see Deadpool and Wolverine, but for me, it'll probably be a at home or on Plex. Which side bonus staff pick? The Drew Carey Show was finally streamable.
What? What?
On Plex with ads. You can watch the entire series. Just dropped.
Wow. Huh.
Yes. I've started watching.
How many seasons of that?
9 or 7.
Wow.
I don't know, a lot of episodes. I'm halfway through the first season, and it's very dated television, but it's still funny.
So when you first started this out, I'm wondering with that show specifically, did they have the Urkel effect, where basically that show turned into Drew fighting with what was the lady in the office? Yes.
Yeah.
That was like the main draw of that show after a while. Did it start out that way?
It's funny rewatching that show because she is just like a side joke of like a fired or not hired like bad interviewee, and then by the second episode she's like a permanent fixture, which I don't quite understand. Like she must have like tested so well in the pilot that they're like, all right, we'll add her in. So but she almost immediately becomes the foil to Drew Carey by the second episode. But yeah, the rest of it still holds up. Like his buddies really make the show. Like Drew's character is like meh, but like Oswald and the other guy are great. So
yeah,
I'm curious to see some of the later episodes, like when you get Craig Kilborn and stuff. Like that guy was so good in that. So it's just cool to see it back because like it left syndication ages ago, never made it to DVD, never made it to streaming. I think it all had stemmed to do with royalties over like that Cleveland Rocks use in the subsequent seasons. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Which I mean, you can't put it out without that song either.
No,
Yeah,
and I completely forgot about the original like the original opening before that. Like it's so much lamer. Like
yeah,
and that's what I've been seeing so far. But I'm curious to see what they do with the later ones. I don't know if they scrapped it or if they must have worked out a licensing deal. I'll find out, I suppose.
Really interesting.
Cool to see it back. Well, weekend rental time.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, weekend rental, for anyone who's unfamiliar, we pick a game for a given system. We'll play it all the way through and give our opinions as to whether we would personally buy, rent, or burn that game. By burn, we mean light it on fire. The system of choice this episode, the good old Game Boy Advance, and we're talking about the original Starfy game, or Densuku no Starfy, something like that. First one, there were 3 of them on the Game Boy Advance. They made it over to DS and stuff later. I think the legendary Starfy in the DS, which is maybe the 4th or 5th game in the series, was the first one we got. First and maybe only one translated and localized.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So we're playing these courtesy of the recent drop to Nintendo Switch Online. All 3 of the original games were put out there. Published by Nintendo, developed by another company, Tiso, something, I don't know. Um, but yeah, it's a action platformer where you play as this little starfish, Starfy. Reminiscent to me, at least, of the Kirby franchise in terms of gameplay style, presentation, ease of difficulty,
Yeah, yeah.
and colorfulness. I guess is kind of how I feel about it.
And like maybe some of the best water physics
I was gonna say like,
ever.
yeah. So when I was first playing through this, I was gonna be like poo poo-ish on like it sucks because water worlds are always like the worst part of every game, and you're basing a whole game in that. But like, turns out when you make controlling a character in water super fluid and precise, that's no longer a detriment.
Yeah.
And especially
Who would have
once you get
thought
later,
after
yeah, and as you get later on through this game and it opens up and changes into different things, like it's really just kind of a footnote in what is an otherwise great platformer.
yeah. It especially when yeah, like you say, when you get the dash and stuff like that, it feels amazing in the water. And then yeah, he can get out of the water and he still platforms pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a cool float.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah, holding the yeah, and again Kirby-ish there, like this
Yeah.
like almost forever float in air. You know what I mean? Yeah, the only thing that like kind of bothered me with this is like there's no translation obviously in these versions of the game. I'm sure someone has done it on a ROM hack somewhere, but there's apparently, you can tell there's a good amount of humor and dialogue that goes into these like really well animated and kind of goofy side characters you run into that you just kind of left sort of guessing at what's happening in this
Yeah.
version.
You
Um,
are kind of doing quests for them within the level sometimes, so it is a little tricky to know exactly what they're looking for, what needs to happen in the level. But I
yeah,
mean, they're so simple anyway that you figure it out.
right. I think what happens is like ultimately, like as an English speaker, you're doing more trial and error and less puzzle solving than they had intended, but it still all works out. And like another like kind of nod to like the Kirby thing is like just the doors floating in space, right? Like that whole mechanic is
Mm.
definitely from Kirby. Um, yeah, it's kind of an interesting game because like it's very simple. So like when you go through the first like half hour of the game, you think you got to figure it out like all right, more of the same or whatever, but then like as you keep progressing and it just gets weirder and weirder, and the gameplay doesn't like drastically like reinvent itself, but it gets kind of more fun. Like I think the
Yeah.
tipping point for me was like once I got inside that orca, and like you're doing that whole
Yeah.
level inside the orca and then you go to the ice thing, and like it just got so much cooler from there for me.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And it's amazing that these didn't come out over here. Like this is when they talk about like American games need to be easier
Mm-hmm.
and and they were dumping out all of these platformer remakes, all the Marios, all that stuff over here. Why would you not bring these over? These are amazing for that specific, you know, genre. Simple
Yeah.
platformers.
Yeah, right. And for a platform that really largely in the US just saw reskins or sequels to, 16-bit era stuff, like it is weird that they chose not to bring an original IP over because
Yeah.
there weren't that many of them from Nintendo. You know what I mean? This almost certainly would have sold well and hit high scores. Like eh, it's not a it's not like a top tier Nintendo style game, but it's definitely much better than average,
Hmm.
especially for that platform.
Yeah. Something new. Yeah. And
And there's
yeah,
just
I
like
wonder if Nintendo does own the rights to this because I mean I've seen
I
it in
think
like
so.
Smash Brothers and stuff, right? So it
Yeah.
seems like it's a Nintendo property.
Yeah, I'm sure it's one of those things where like they funded development and like did the publishing and stuff, and it's kind of got that level of Nintendo polish. Like there's so much like there's so much attention to detail with the characters and like well Starfy in particular, but like even some of the subsequent ones you run into, there's just really cute frames of animation and like him running fast or like you overusing your attack and getting winded and I don't know, there's just like a lot to love and a lot of charm in this cute little game. So like even while it's not overly difficult, you're still like always kind of entertained and have a smile on your face while playing it, which is I think a very Nintendo trait, right? I mean that's not common, but it's common among Nintendo games, and this is no exception. And Starfy's just like a really lovable character, so it is funny that they didn't push him more as like a mascot.
Yeah. And I found the collectibles be interesting in this too because they're your health restore too.
Yeah, yeah, very
So
cool.
I ended up like it's kind of like a risk reward. Do you get them? So you make sure you get them. I think they add up for points at the end or something. I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
but also what happens if you know get in a rough spot and you need health? You know, do you want to keep them there?
Right. Yeah, that's true. I found myself doing that too, where I would like, well, I know there's that pocket over there. I'm like, I'm sure I'm going to come back, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's very cool. I also like how they reuse. Um, there's a lot of reuse of areas you traverse, where you know you'll go in a door, do a thing, and it fundamentally changes. So it's like a very subtle Metroidvania element to the game where like you're not necessarily always getting a power up that gets you to the next thing, but like you're doing an action that like fundamentally changes the way you know the path that you followed before is traversed. And
Yep.
I think it's very fun and it's done in a way that like okay, we don't have to keep stacking abilities and stacking things for you to remember. It's just like we're doing it and tweaking it in a way that it's a one and done, but it makes the gameplay that much more interesting.
Mm,
Which I think is kind of what makes it more approachable, right? Like it's not this like new ability upon new ability upon new, like it's very geared towards a younger audience where they can kind of get that same effect without throwing more at the player to
right. And even the
remember.
bosses that you had were like, yeah, the extra things that you have are going to help,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think you would have to use those to make it to kill them.
Right.
Um, did you ever open up the red blocks? I could never figure out how to get rid of those things.
No, I haven't either. Like I assume it must be a later game thing, but yeah, that was the one section I couldn't ever get. I also am curious as to what happened inside that whale. Like, did I unlock like whale aids, and that's what opened up that portal to like free that fish guy? Like,
Uh,
I know I
yeah, it was a lot of
exchanged a
gift giving,
teddy.
and then it was
Yeah,
like,
I
yeah,
exchanged a teddy bear for a cake, and that made germs happy. But I don't know how that helped anybody.
uh,
Yeah, it's it's really good. Like it's good to the point where like I'm gonna make an effort to try and get through these three original games. I think because
yeah.
I'd played Legendary Starfy. I bought that on I think I found it on clearance for like $2. Like well, not even on clearance. I found it secondhand. And my son really enjoyed it, and I played some of it. And that one's interesting because there's like boss battles and stuff. If I'm remembering right, where you can do local area network with a couple DSs and like fight bosses together and stuff, which is cool.
Hmm.
But I remember thinking like that game was like really cool and cute and polished, but I can't say that the first one's even that far off. Like it's a much more basic introduction to it, but yeah, it's crazy that these like why is there no collection? You know what I mean? Like why hasn't this come out
Yeah,
on something? I
yeah.
guess
These are
this is the
really
something.
solid. Yeah, it's got that. I mean, it's got that Super Nintendo look,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
classic Super Nintendo look. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really good visual effects too. Like that probably were aided by the GBA having some like really good parallax scrolling and stuff. But
Mhm.
I kind of want to see like a Kirby Starfy mashup, if I'm being honest. Because I mean, Kirby already rides stars. Why can't he just like hop on Starfy and they just like hook shit up together? You know, be great.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That would be good. I It is amazing. Like I actually cannot believe that these are not out in some
Yes.
form. But
I was also surprised when we were. This is like a side tangent, but when we were I revisited it today to play some more of it, and they just like dropped like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for whatever reason on GBA. On, like I didn't even know that was coming, but cool.
yeah,
So, yeah, yeah. If you have a Nintendo Switch Online, there's really no excuse not to check these out. They're very, very cool. So, well, I think we know where this is going. But on the
yeah,
Byron Burn scale, what would you give Starfy, Andy?
yeah. This is a definite buy. This is one of the most enjoyable games that I've had. I think we've played in a while, and it might just be because it's a pretty breezy game too.
Sure.
Um, but that's kind of what I'm looking for when I want to hop online and just on the Switch and just play something light like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect game for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. I thought maybe it was a little overly simplistic when we started it, and I was like, this is at least a rent. But then once it starts opening up and you see that it's more than just like the first couple levels, like it's not the best platformer ever, but it's very solid, especially for Game Boy Advance, which, like we've said, it just had like a lot of ports and like reimaginings, and this is like a truly unique thing that plays and feels well, and like it just makes you smile. Like I mean, it's a very adorable character and presentation and gameplay style, and yeah, you gotta buy it.
Yeah, Nintendo put out a collection. I put it in English, please, because I think
Yes.
I got stuck in a spot where I wasn't sure what to do. I got stuck in a maze,
Yeah.
and you go up to things and they tell you. I'm sure they're telling you what to do, but
I'm also curious in the character name of the mermaid because it looks a lot like Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and I would like to know what her name is in the game. If it's not Ariel, it's something
maybe
else.
that's why it never came over.
That's
They were
got to be
afraid of
it.
Disney.
Yeah. Maybe it was the the Kong or the clamshell cleavage. They just couldn't show that.
Yep.
It's too graphic.
Uh, there's a lot of maybe rapey fish in this game. It's a lot of like looks like they're trying to kiss, unconsensual in some ways. So maybe that's part of it too. Who knows?
Rapey fish. I love it.
Well, dolphins are notorious in that category.
I mean, it's a dolphin. Who wouldn't want to be raped by a dolphin? Starfy, I guess.
I suppose. Yeah, I
That,
didn't see
that
any dolphins in there.
that's
So
the jet lag talking. I don't know. Well, did we make it through this episode? Did it make sense? I think so.
we did.
All right.
Yeah, we're back on the horse.
Or the dolphin.
The dolphin. Yeah.
Oh, and we
Well,
forgot to
guys.
comment on your hat because
Oh yeah,
I thought it
whale.
was very iconic that Andy is wearing a whale hat. And while I was in Norway, I ate whale. That's right. Called pita. They taste like rain. They taste like venison. It's delicious.
I always wondered that. Like, so it's mammal meat,
Yeah.
so it's got to be. But also, does it have the ocean fishiness?
Now it tastes like very irony, like you shot a deer or you shot an elk sort of
Huh.
thing.
Okay.
It confused me though because I didn't know I was eating a whale. I mean, I'd bought some whale sausage. Make jokes at that, however you will, but like we had ordered a seafood sampler fish plate, right? Like fish plate, it was called fish sampler. And then I was like, oh, it also came with steak. And we're like eating it and like, this is good steak. It's kind of like gamey though. Like, I wonder if this is like elk or whatever. So we asked the lady, she looked at us like we were idiots. Like, no, that's whale. I'm like, whale's not a fucking fish, lady. Like, disclose that. It was good. I put some soy sauce on it. It
You've
was,
ruined Lent forever.
yeah, it was good. So I just figured I'd let everybody know that I'm a monster and I eat whales. So, or did.
Yeah. Well.
Somebody's got it. It's already dead.
Hmm. It's one whale. Like that could feed a nation. So
Right. Yeah. I'm not part of the problem. I'm part of the solution. I
right.
left. I was only there for a week. All right.
Just to bypass her at night. Yeah.
Yeah. Side tangent over. I'll let you.
Well, email us at weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us if you've had whale and what do you think it tastes like if you haven't. Or if you been raped by a dolphin too. That might be a pretty interesting story I'd like to hear too. But
let's hope you weren't raped by a whale because it'd be a much different story.
Oh my gosh. I don't think you'd be with us anymore. But yeah, we're also on Twitter. We stream sometimes. I don't know if you want to watch us. I mean, you just listen to the last 5 minutes of this. So you really want to see that on a video. But in case you do, it's twitch.tv/weekendrental. And yeah, until next time, be kind, rewind.
Hada bra.